Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Welcome back to another episode of Killer Innovations. Today, I want to talk about how innovators think. How innovators think. Now, you can either be managing innovators or you can be an innovator yourself. But I really want to talk about the key traits. What makes up what I refer to as the innovator's mindset? Now, this innovator mindset, it's essential for driving change and progress inside of organizations, inside of governments, inside of society. These individuals tend to relentlessly pursue new ideas. They're constantly coming up with something new. They also are not afraid to challenge the status quo. And ultimately, this innovator's mindset enables individuals and organizations to truly reach what I refer to as their full potential. Now, in today's episode, we're going to cover four main things. One is, what are the elements of an innovator's mindset? Two, what are the actions that demonstrate that someone has an innovator's mindset? So something you can look at somebody and go, they got it. Number three, what's the benefits of having an innovator's mindset? And number four, steps to cultivate your innovator's mindset. What are the things you can do to cultivate that mindset? So let's hop right in today. So let's talk about the key elements. Key elements, there's three of them that I tend to kind of use as an umbrella over all of them. First out of the gate, curiosity. Curiosity fuels the exploration. It fuels discovery. You're never satisfied. You're always asking the what if or what else and the and question. It leads to expanding your knowledge beyond the things that you're familiar with. Curiosity is you're looking into areas that you're not familiar with. Things that, you're making kind of some random connections. What if we did this and plugged it in with that? Perfect example of this is Steve Jobs. Now, I had the benefit of knowing Steve and interacting with Steve from the early days of Apple and then on and off as our paths crossed. Now, Steve had a unique perspective, and that is he could make these random connections. And one of the connections that he really emphasized on was really this connection between technology and the humanities, the technology and philosophy, and technology and society. And it was that blending to change the whole experience of what did it really mean to hold technology in your hand. That is a great example of curiosity, and Steve is a great example of someone who has and had the innovator's mindset. The second key element is resilience. You have to view failures as learning opportunities, and you have to persevere through the setbacks. You've got to be resilient. The constant pushing back, what I refer to as the innovation antibodies, everybody telling you your idea is stupid, it's never going to work, whatever it is. You just have to buckle down and persevere. So those people who don't take no as the answer, they're willing to continue to push. They're continuing to challenge. These people, when you manage them, can be highly annoying. You're trying to wave them off, but they're like a dog with a bone. So a great example of this would be, Thomas Edison. The famous Thomas Edison quote, "I've not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work," when he was developing the filament for the light bulb. Or when his entire laboratory burned down. Most people would have just walked away, folded it up, said, "Okay, I'm done." He was, an old man at this point, and he had a lot of successes under his belt. He could have just simply said, "I'm going into my sunset. I'm going to coast now." He didn't. He had that resiliency. He had that drive inside of him to continue to be that innovator, to have that innovator's mindset. And then the third element, adaptability. Adaptability. You're able to adjust rapidly to changing environments. And look, nothing is static. Your career's not static. Your family's not static. Your kids are not static. Your spouse is not static. The government's not static. Society and what's happening in society is not static. The ability to adjust to rapidly changing environments, absolutely critical. And your ability and willingness to integrate new information in to drive strategies. That includes, key here, changing your strategy. Some people get locked in, they believe one thing, and they're not open to maybe having a discussion with somebody that has a completely different perspective to you, whether that's on society, politics, how to raise kids. You need to be open as with an innovator's mindset to take in that new information and use that new information to adjust, tweak, and improve your strategy and be willing to pivot. And the key here on adaptability is with an innovator's mindset, look out far enough ahead so you make that change ahead of your competition. And a great example of this, albeit I don't know if it's really a great example, but it's one that everybody quotes, is Netflix. Netflix, and that is the evolving from DVDs to streaming. Netflix saw where broadband was going. The broadband networks to consumers had crossed over from 25 megabits to 30 megabits to 35 megabits. And you're like, whoa, what can you do with all that broadband capacity? That was the catalyst for Netflix to say, with that kind of throughput, we can stream. We can push the bits rather than atoms, ship bits to the customers to enjoy that content. That is adaptability. Looking at the trends, looking what's happening, getting that new information, and rolling it in and having it play a part in your strategy. So, those are the key elements. But what are the actions? If you're sitting back and you're looking at your team or you're looking at yourself, what are the things that demonstrate that innovator's mindset? Well, one is like we talked about, it's that curiosity. But it's not just curiosity, because curiosity can be just a mental exercise. It's also about experimentation, encouraging themselves, encouraging their teams to always be curious and to always be experimenting. Do they do, adrenos? Do they have 3D printers and laser cutters? Do they build stuff? Are they musicians? Are they writing music? Are they artists? Are they constantly painting and trying new? Maybe they're oils and they go to watercolors, or they go to some other complete new art form. Curiosity and experimentation. The other is failure is not a negative to these people. If you have an innovator's mindset, failure is not a negative. It's actually a growth opportunity. It's education. It's learning. The other is those with an innovator's mindset seek diverse perspectives. They want to talk to as many people as possible and get that input. A great example of this is, whether it be Google or HP and a lot of the companies which encouraged personal projects. You could do your own personal project. And there's a lot of companies that run what gets referred to as innovation days. Bring the employees together, get them away from their day-to-day job. Either they team up or they go off on themselves to just create something, invent something, do something. It doesn't even have to be related to the business, but go off and do these personal projects. I remember one at HP long before I got there. But it was Art Fong, who was HP employee number 9. When I met Art, he was in his late 80s going into 90. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. I did a great podcast interview with Art Go back into the archive, search for Art Fong, Fong, and he's got like some unbelievable stories. And actually, in that interview, I talked to him about this test that he did. He was a radar expert, and he was one of the key people to invent radar for World War II. And that's where Bill Hillett found him. Bill Hillett was in the military, found Art Fong, recruited him to become an early HP employee. And in the parking lot, Art put together the radar system made out of Army surplus stuff, and basically created the first speed gun for you to measure speed of a car. Now, this thing was about the size of a cabinet, and actually, if you go onto the site, Killer Innovation site, and search for it, you'll see Art holding the picture of him and Bill Hillett and David Packard as he's doing this kind of demonstration in the parking lot. And David Packard was driving the HP official station wagon up and down the parking lot in front of Building 1. And Art was calculating how fast the car was driving based on this radar. It basically became the precursor to the radar gun. It wasn't a business HP was in. Art was just curious. He was interested in radar, and he wanted to see what the possibilities were. And HP, as a great example, gave him the flexibility to go off and do that. And just so you know what the benefit of that is, not the radar gun, but all of that curiosity from Art, at one point in time, 30% of HP's total revenue came from innovations invented by Art Fong. 30% of all of HP's revenue. So, this is a great example of of demonstrating that innovator's mindset and why it can actually lead to some great things. But let's summarize, what are the real benefits, right? We talked about the Art Fong, right? But look, an innovator's mindset fosters creativity and progress. It's constantly pushing the boundaries. It opens up avenues for development. In the case of the radar gun, it wasn't the radar gun, but it was about how to measure radar. And back then, HP was into test and measurement. How do you measure things? Measure voltage, measure signals in the air, measure radar. It fed into that effort. And it keeps individuals and organizations competitive and agile. You want people with an innovator's mindset. Warning, you don't want everybody to have an innovator's mindset, because otherwise that would be a very tough organization to work in. You need people with different skill sets, but you do need to recruit, support, retain, lead those with an innovator's mindset. So what are the steps? You're watching this because you think you're an innovator or you want to be an innovator. You maybe have been a long time fan of the podcast or the YouTube channel. So how do you cultivate an innovator's mindset? One is commit to continuous learning. Recent question I got from a listener was around the whole issue of can you learn from reading? Yes, you can. 2, engage with diverse ideas. Look at a variety of different diverse ideas. Be open to ideas. 3, explore knowledge beyond your comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone. Go look at new things. 4, maintain persistence through adversity. So again, continuous learning, look at diverse ideas, explore knowledge beyond your comfort zone, and maintain persistence through adversity. So again, innovator's mindset, it's a catalyst for change. It fosters that curiosity, resiliency, and adaptability. And then ultimately, it empowers individuals to drive meaningful progress and shape the future. And that's why we're all here. The ideas, the creativity that we're bringing to the table is we want to change the world. So, as I wrap up, thanks for listening. Don't forget to click the subscribe, post your comments, your questions. I'll weave them in, and hopefully you found this interesting. Would love to hear your thoughts on it. If there's anything I missed. And with that, we'll be back to you real soon, and have a great week. Work on your ideas and change the world. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.